back to the basics sort of relationship with all beings, if you've had a change in that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I mean, one part of that is I tend to think that, you know, I mean, indigenous cultures see everything as possessing consciousness and intelligence at its own level, whether it's a rock or a plant. I really like, I have one friend who's a herbalist, Morgan Brent, and he has a whole construct around the plant teachers, where he talks about how, like, you know, we have this idea that we're the only conscious and intelligent thing that's happening on the planet, and that we're at the top of this pyramid. And he says if you like squish down that pyramid back into a sphere, you know, we've only been around for such a tiny point of time. We're like a little pinprick. And then you have these elder communities of life, like the plant community. And so his idea is that, you know, the plant world, noting that we as a species are in this kind of initiatory adolescent phase where we're kind of like knocking into everything and messing everything up, they appointed certain plants to be kind of like the ambassadors and teachers of humanity. You know, which is very much, I think, how like the native people work with something like peyote. You know, they talk about it as grandfather and really address it with incredible reverence and respect, you know, for the teachings it brings. And my own experience with ayahuasca and iboga and so on have been very much that they're kind of trying to put us back on a path, you know, and make us look at all the things that are unhealthy in our life patterns and in our way of thought, and you know, find a way to change them.
I have a question. Do you think that we can get to that sort of consciousness without plants or substances, without forcing it? And if so, how?
Well, we can't get to any kind of, you know, anything without plants, because we eat them all the time. You know, I don't think we necessarily have to eat psychedelic plants. You know, people say that I'm an advocate of the psychedelic experience, and I don't think that it's necessarily for everybody. I just think that, you know, as adults, we should have, you know, freedom of consciousness to have these experiences, especially when you look at a whole history of human use with these substances, you know, where native people have used them for maybe tens of thousands of years safely, you know, and we can't have those experiences. Meanwhile, we have a psychopharmacological industry which is creating these, you know, agents that are very powerful consciousness changers with no history of human use. We don't know what their eventual effects are. We don't know how using those changes the balance of a human society. You know, we don't know what effects, what health, you know, what negative effects they may be having, and yet those are actually, you know, prescribed to young people, you know, to kids even, you know, as well as adults, and on a mass scale. You know, so you know, I could almost get angry about that, but I won't. She's got the mic.
As far as a young generation, how do we inspire, like, the younger folks to experience these experiences without actually abusing the drugs? How do we raise awareness to it?
You raise awareness by, you know, talking to people and helping them out and you know, being completely authentic, you know, about what you know and what you don't know. You know, I mean, ultimately, because, you know, I mean, with a lot of these things, it's not legal. And then you have substances like salvia, I guess, which is salvia divinorum, which is a psychedelic, which in many states is still legally available. But I really would not, you know, suggest to most people or young people that they run and buy salvia on the shelf and take it, because you know, we just have a tendency in our culture to you know, deform things. You know, like, and we jump for the agent, the catalytic agent of something, without any appreciation for the larger context. You know, so like the Mazatec Indians, they would never smoke. That's where we discovered the salvia plant. They would never smoke salvia. You know, they would only eat the fresh leaves as a quid, partially because it's a water-loving plant. It hates to be dried, and in their mind, it would hate to be smoked. And so a lot of times when people have the salvia experience, they have very volatile, negative, kind of horrific kind of visions. And here's something that, for whatever reason, is being legally allowed to kind of float around our society without any meaningful context whatsoever. You know, so I mean, I think, like, you know, we have to, you know, to try to educate people into the larger framework, you know, the larger cultural framework, and also, I think Barbara Marx Hubbard, you know, has a very good point that we really have to try to develop an evolutionary perspective in a lot of areas. Which means just stepping back from our kind of immersion in our current history, our current historical moment, where we get all panicked about this or that happening, and just like step way back and look at everything that's happening as an evolutionary process, where we now have the capacity, if we can gain enough consciousness and awareness, to shape that evolutionary process and not just be victims of it.
I wanted to know what your experiences and interpretations are with deja vu.
Deja vu? No, I mean, I've had many deja vu experiences. I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, it's one of a type of psychic experience you can have. I don't have any great insight into it.
You have another question?
Yes, I wanted to ask what you thought about the budding business of shamanic tourism and what it's doing to the indigenous cultures.
I think that it's basically a good thing. I mean, I've had a lot of arguments with people about it, but I think that a lot of indigenous cultures have been very their relationship to our world has been a very destructive one for them, where their culture has been totally devalued, and then they lose their language, their old ways. I think if people go down to South America, with a proper frame of mind and a kind of proper respect, it's a real interchange that also brings financial resources to some of these indigenous communities. So it's like everything. It has nothing's ever perfect or pure. But I think on the whole, it can be a very beneficial thing.
Yeah, what's the significance in your book about the return of Quetzalcoatl?
Quetzalcoatl?
Yeah.
Well, it has a bunch of different aspects to it. I mean, I think Quetzalcoatl as a symbol, it's the Mesoamerican kind of deity archetype that represents integration. Because it's the feathered serpent, so it's the meeting of the bird and the snake. The bird obviously is flying in the air, and the snake kind of slithers on the ground. So it's this integration of seemingly opposed opposites, of air and matter, heaven and earth, spirit and matter. And in that sense, it's a symbol of transformation.